Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. Back in January of 2014, I was driving home from my workplace and witnessed an unexplained creature cross the roadway in front of me. I was at my workplace, the Toyota plant in Buffalo, West Virginia. I was on vacation, but I needed to stop by and pick up my paycheck. It was close to 5 p.m. I was driving home on Route 35 and then turned off onto Hurricane Creek Road, heading toward my house. It was dark by that time. There was a wide turn about a quarter of a mile from the highway. As I drove through the turn, something on two legs walked out of the woods and onto the roadway. I hit the high beams, and when I did this thing turned its head and bore its teeth, running in the opposite direction on two legs. I have no idea what this thing was, but its teeth were huge. It was about 6 to 7 feet. It had a snout like a bear, but the head looked like a man's, eyes, ears, and hair. The body had black hair all over it, but it was built like a stocky man, long legs with big flat feet and arms with man hands. It shocked the hell out of me. When I got home, I told my wife, but I didn't tell my daughter. I didn't want to scare her. I've hunted this county all my life, but I have never seen or heard anything like this. I only call it the Bear Man. Today's second part of the upload. This is my brother's experience. It's not mine, so here goes. September of 2003, I believe it was July, northeastern Utah. It was fully dark, so it must have been pretty late, but he doesn't remember the exact time. They were living in a house toward the western edge of town, just to set the scene. So they are still in a neighborhood, but this is a rural town, so only traffic out there is people who live on that street. They're the second house, I think, or maybe the third from the corner heading away from town. There's a streetlight on that corner, a partially wooded field with a pretty old abandoned house across the street, and a house next to the field. He was sitting out on the porch smoking and reading a book when he heard a weird sound from up the street. He looked toward the street and didn't see anything at first. He said the sound was like when you have a big dog that is really pulling hard on the leash, panting and choking kind of, but it was loud. He kept watching, and after a few seconds, he saw this thing moving from the end of the street toward the corner. He said it was blacker than darkness, and the porch light didn't really reach much past the yard. So, he really didn't get any details, but it was big. It had 4 legs or 2 legs and 2 arms, and it kind of moved like a gorilla, sometimes on all 4s and sometimes on 2, but hunched over. The whole time it was making the panting, slobbering noises, and it moved down the street in front of him. As it got even with the edge of their yard closest to the corner, it started veering toward the side of their street. and at that point my brother ran. Now, let me explain that my brother's a big guy. He's very level-headed and he is not afraid of anything. Even when we were kids, he was just not afraid of anything, not the dark, not ghosts, not anything. He believes in the paranormal, but it really doesn't scare him. He's just calm and always in control. And he saw this thing getting closer and ran inside, yelling for my sister-in-law to keep the dogs inside. She told me later that his face was white and he was fumbling as he was picking up his gun. And his voice was shaking. He told her, "Something's outside, keep the dogs in here." Their roommate was home and he grabbed a gun as well and they went back outside, but it was gone. He described it to me as a cross between an ape and a dog, but the size of a horse, and said that if he had to compare it to any known creature, it would be a werewolf. I was visiting a week or so later, and my sister-in-law and I had to run and get some cigarettes. On the way, we passed 3 cops pulled off to the side of the road, and they had their spotlights trained on a field. Let me stress that this is a small town. We don't have many cops, and not much happens out that direction, but here were 3 patrol cars all looking for something in this field that was just down the street from my brother's house. When we got to the corner by the house, there was this Jeep and truck stopped in the middle of the intersection, under the streetlight, but our windows were down because late summer in the desert, so we could hear the guys in the 2 vehicles talking with each other. Actually, they were almost yelling and sounded pretty excited. "Did you see that? What the hell was that?" We were pretty sure we knew what they were talking about, so we turned into the driveway and ran into the house while they were still there. So there would be a witness in case any weird creatures tried to grab us between the car and the house. I never saw this thing, but I've heard stories of similar creatures from other people. So I'm pretty sure there's something out there. Not sure if I really want to see it or not, though. That's just another story from the basin. This third story of the evening is the actual relative to the second encounter that we just shared. This particular story happened in August of 2004. Probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had been camping with a group, and my boyfriend's mom needed to run back to town for something. I volunteered to go with her because, well, I have no idea why, looking back on it. We left the campsite and drove maybe 50 yards to where the road crossed a slightly wider but still crummy dirt road. Right across the intersection were 2 animals that I at first thought were deer because of their size, but the color was all wrong, and one of them was kind of sitting on its haunches. We pulled up and stopped. It stood up and they both just kind of stood there, kind of shifting their weight from foot to foot and taking a step in one direction and then another. I felt a little scared because I just couldn't recognize these creatures with any other animal I've ever seen before. I asked my boyfriend's mom, "What the hell are those things?" And she said, "Oh, those are hares." Like it was no big deal. Friends, those were not hares. The only thing they had in common with hares were very large ears. They were the size of a deer. They had very long legs, and they moved kind of stiffly, and they did not hop with their back legs like rabbits, hares, or jackrabbits do. The legs all moved independently, and they actually took steps, not hops. The closest thing I can compare them to were the land striders from Dark Crystal, if any of you are old enough to know what I'm talking about. The color was more brown, and the legs weren't that long, but that was my initial impression. They just milled around in the road while I watched, and then my boyfriend's mom turned onto the other road and we drove away. She acted like it was no big deal, which made me feel scared, because I knew they were not hares or jackrabbits or any kind of creature that should be up there. I've seen jackrabbits, I've hunted them, I know what they look like, same with deer. I don't know what these things were, but I still get creeped out thinking about them. Every year or so since then, I've Googled images of hares and jackrabbits, trying to find an image that matches what I saw that day, but nothing comes close. I don't even know what they were. This discussion came up when we were talking about Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if my experience was directly related to the ranch or not, but having lived here for a good long while, I know the whole basin has weird stuff going on, and has for a very long time. Yes, it has. It certainly has. Now, this could have been a Dogman, but when I first read this and really thought about it, I was like, Dogman. But then, of course, I started thinking about Skinwalker Ranch and my fascination with it, and that is one place that if I had the money, time, and a babysitter, because I will definitely not take my daughter with me out there, I would love to go to, or at least the basin around the ranch. I probably would never be able to set foot on it because of the tight security, but maybe, just maybe, these things that this person saw were some sort of creature from those portals that we hear about. I mean, remember the hunter? He was sitting up on that ridge, saw a portal, and saw some sort of demented-looking creature just plop out. Almost like, the way he described it was the portal opened and this creature literally dropped out like some sort of animal dropping from a birth canal. Like, blop. I mean, how friggin' weird is that? And then it just took off and ran into the woods. While he's sitting in the woods hunting. Huh. Go figure. Anyway, I don't know. Who knows? I'd like to say Dogman, but I don't know. That whole area is very strange, as we know. Moving on. Today's fourth part of the upload is a missing 411 with a cryptid involvement and a criminal element. It's actually a very sad, troubling story. I had this upload already recorded and I deleted it by accident. But it was very hard for me to read it the first time. So, yeah, it's definitely a crazy one, guys. So, here goes. One of the most famous legendary creatures of all, the massive, hairy, ape-like beast known as Sasquatch, has been reported to be lurking and stalking in just about every expanse of wilderness in North America. While these sightings are strange enough, the creatures themselves have been mostly said to be shy, reclusive, and peaceful. Yet every once in a while, a truly sinister report will come in of these creatures not being any of those things. And one very strange disappearance has managed to combine all of the oddness of violent Bigfoot encounter and mysterious vanishing. On June 1st, 1987, 16-year-old Teresa Ann Beyer of Fresno, California, went off on a camping trip to a rather remote area of Shut-Eye Peak in the scenic Sierra Mountains, approximately 25 miles northeast of Bass Lake. Her companion on this particular trip was 43-year-old Russell Welsh. It was well known at the time that Welsh was an avid Bigfoot enthusiast, and in fact, a self-proclaimed expert on the creature, and the two allegedly had embarked into the wilderness on a quest to find the legendary beast. This is not so strange in of itself, as the Sierra Nevada mountains are quite the hotspot for Bigfoot activity, with Welsh even claiming that he's seen them several times in the region. But it was a bit weird that he believed he was in actual continuous contact with a whole group of them, and also perhaps a little odd that Beyer's parents would let her go off alone on a camping trip with a much older man on what many would consider a crackpot quest. Nevertheless, they went off on their adventure, and only one of them would return. When Welsh returned to Fresno several days later without Beyer in tow, and the girl made no effort to contact her family, he was considered a person of interest in her possible disappearance. When he was questioned by the authorities about what had happened to Byer, things got rather strange. Welsh, at first, told the police that she had run away from him out into the wilderness. But then he would change his mind and decide to tell them what really happened, which would prove to be perhaps far weirder than any of the law enforcement personnel present could have possibly imagined. Welsh claimed that during their camping trip they had gone out on a hike to look for the elusive Sasquatch, and that at some point Byer and himself had become separated in the thick forest. At that point, Welsh claimed that one of the massive creatures had swooped in and grabbed her and carried her off into the wilderness. It may come as no surprise whatsoever that the police found this all pretty hard to swallow, even though the suspect himself seemed to truly believe what he was saying, and sensing that they had kidnapping or potential murder on their hands. The police immediately descended upon the area where the two had been camping, yet a full and comprehensive search of the surrounding area turned up no trace of Teresa Byer. When authorities grilled Welsh again to try to glean more information, he stood by his story that she had been dragged into the wilds by a Bigfoot, adamant that this was what really happened. Sasquatch or not, Welsh was charged with child stealing and a trial was set. While he was waiting to go to court for quite the serious charge, Welsh was offered the opportunity to sign a waiver allowing prosecutors to pursue the murder charge in the event that the body was found, in exchange for a light 1-year prison sentence in the meantime. Welsh, still apparently believing that Byer had been truly abducted by the giant hairy hominid, promptly refused the deal. In response to this, as well as the lack of any concrete physical evidence at all to link him to the vanishing, the charge was dropped just 3 days before the impending trial in order to avoid defying the law of double jeopardy, which forbids a suspect from being charged twice for the same crime. In this case, meaning his release would allow authorities to later charge him with more serious charges of murder in the event that the body was discovered. It was thought that a trial for kidnapping at the time could not be won on such flimsy evidence, and even if the body was not found, the child stealing charges could eventually be reinstated, although he would likely only get the maximum 4 years for this lesser crime, if they could even make it stick at all. Since no body has ever been found, and indeed Byer has never been heard from again, and no real evidence other than suspicious existence to hold Welsh, he remains a free man. As to the victim herself, there has been absolutely no sign of what has become of her. And oddly, Welsh has always maintained that she was really in fact kidnapped by Sasquatch, which, of all the wild stories and excuses he could attempt to weave, seems like an odd choice at the very least. Indeed, his insistence on this outlandish tale has caused some people to wonder if there is any chance he could possibly be telling the truth. Welsh must have known that not only would no one believe him, but that this far-out yarn would cause him to look even more suspicious. But he stuck to his surreal version of the events anyway. Why would that be? He could have simply told police that Byer had wandered off hiking and never came back, or that she was injured. So why turn it into a bizarre tale of a Bigfoot abduction? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? There's also the fact that there's actually quite a few reports of people being allegedly kidnapped by Bigfoot. For instance, there is a 1924 case of Albert Ostman, who claimed to have been carried off by a Bigfoot as he slept, bundled in his own sleeping bag. He would then say that he was kept captive for nearly a week by the whole family of creatures before managing to escape with his strange tale. In 1928, there's also an account from a Nootka Indian named Muchalat Harry, who also alleged he had been dragged off and held captive by a group of these creatures before getting away while they were distracted. Both men would spend the remainder of their days petrified of the woods, and fully insist that their stories were true. And there are quite a few more stories, where these came from. Is there a chance at all that this could have been what really happened to Teresa? This is the actual news clipping from '87. Man claims Bigfoot abducted girl while camping, Fresno, California. A suspect who claims the legendary 8-man Bigfoot abducted a teen girl was freed from jail 3 days before the scheduled start of his trial on child stealing charges. Fresno County authorities said they were forced into letting Russell Welsh, 44, back onto the streets to avoid double jeopardy if they were later chose to charge the man with murder. Welsh is accused of abducting Teresa Ann Byer, 16, last June. The two went camping in the Central Sierra and the girl did not return. Welsh told authorities that the legendary 8-man, also known as Sasquatch, had taken the girl. Detectives say Welsh apparently sincerely believes in Bigfoot creatures and claims to have continued contact with a tribe of them. Deputy District Attorney L. Vance Hooper Friday offered Welsh a 1-year term on child stealing charges if he would sign a waiver allowing for a murder trial in the event that the girl's body was found. But Welsh's public defender, Mel Rube, refused to sign the waiver, and Hooper said he was forced to drop the charge in case authorities later want to charge Welsh with murder. If the body is not found, Hooper said he will probably refile the child stealing charges with a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison. Welsh had been scheduled to stand trial Monday. Rube denies his client had anything to do with the girl's disappearance, but would not say if Welsh is still contending that Bigfoot took the girl. The double jeopardy statute prevents a suspect from being charged twice for the same crime. Sadly, Teresa Ann Byer has never been found. Here is some information from the missing persons database. Missing since June 1st, 1987, from Fresno, California. Date of birth, April 16th, 1971. Age at time of disappearance, 16. Height and weight, 5'5", 110 pounds. Distinguishing characteristics: Caucasian female, brown hair, hazel eyes. Byer's upper front teeth protrude. She has a surgical scar on her lower leg due to a childhood fracture. Byer's nickname is Sam. Clothing, jewelry description: white t-shirt, jeans, and laced sandals. Byer resided with her family in Fresno, California in 1987. She was last seen during a camping trip with Russell Welsh on June 1st, 1987, in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Byer and Welsh, whose nickname is Skip, camped in the area of Shut-Eye Peak, approximately 25 miles northeast of Bass Lake. He was 43 years old at the time. They were reportedly searching for the legendary creature known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Welsh considered himself a student of the legend. Byer disappeared during the trip and has never been heard from again. Authorities questioned Welsh when he returned to Fresno several days later. He initially claimed that Byer ran away from him on June 1st. Then he changed his story. Welsh eventually stated that Byer had been forcibly taken by a Sasquatch. Welsh was charged with her abduction, but the case against him was dismissed due to lack of evidence in October of '87. More than 4 months after Byer disappeared. Searches of Shut-Eye Peak area produced no clues to her whereabouts. Foul play is suspected in Byer's case. If anyone has information regarding the disappearance of Teresa Ann Byer, please call the Fresno Police Department at 559-621-7000. I told you guys that was a hard one. I mean, me having a daughter that's 16 and another daughter at 13 can only just, And, those poor parents are probably, thinking, hey, why did we let our kid go with this 44-year-old guy, on top of the public probably saying that, which is just, they just lost their daughter. I mean, who knows what was going through their head. '87 was definitely a different time. I was 11, and it was definitely different than 2021, and a lot of you still remember how kind of laxed things were back then, but I don't know. And those poor parents, once again, are probably thinking if we never let our daughter go with this guy, she would still be here with us. So, do I think that a Sasquatch abducted Teresa? Yeah, I do. I really do. First, because there was no physical evidence of any foul play in the area. And, the police would have found it. The investigators would have found something. They're not just dumb gumshoe cops. They're very, when things go down like this, they send in very intelligent men and women, who think and rationally just, it's the real deal. If she was abducted by a Sasquatch, do I think she is passed yet? Yes, I do. And I really honestly hope that it was quick, because as we know, these things are definitely capable of doing some really violent and vile things to humans, especially women. So, I don't know. My prayers go to the family. Today's final encounter. It was 1998. I was 35 years old. I had been working with the Forest Department for 12 years. There was a fire in the Appalachicola National Forest that summer. The Bradwell Bay area was on fire when all of this happened. The fire was raging very badly at this point. We didn't know if we would ever get out. That morning, I had reported to the command center on Helen Guard Station Road to get briefed on what I was to do that day. So me and another guy were given the task of driving around looking for animals along the road of Bradwell Bay area. Animals would make it to the road and usually fall out if they were injured or had really bad smoke inhalation. Our job was to pick them up and take them to the vets at the command center. The vets would treat them and, on some occasions, euthanize the ones that would not make it. So we were driving around the area heading south, doing about 45 miles an hour. Definitely faster than I should have been driving. I was talking to my partner and didn't realize how fast I was going, when all of a sudden we saw a black figure run out of the woods on all fours. It ran right up under my driver's side tire. I hit the animal with both my front and back tire. I was driving a 95 Dodge Ram 4x4, so I knew at that speed I had killed it. Immediately we thought it was a bear. We got out to pick the bear up and put it in the back of the truck. Upon further investigation, we realized what I had hit was not a bear at all. It was a creature that neither one of us had ever seen. It was about 6 feet tall. It had legs, kneecaps, and feet, just like you and I. The arms hung to about the knee. One arm, of a matter of fact, was down by its knee. The other one was up over its head. I had run the creature over under its right underarm, across the shoulder blade, and over the back of its neck. The creature was covered in hair, about 3 to 5 inches long on its arms, legs, and head. The hair on the back, ribs, and chest was much shorter. The muscle definition on the animal was phenomenal. It looked like a prize fighter or one of those guys you'd see in the UFC. We flipped the animal over. The jaw was broken from where I had hit it with the truck. I could see through. It had protruding snout, much like a baboon, or what you would think a werewolf would look like. Its eyes were just like ours. The thing looked a lot like a chimpanzee. We quickly radioed into the command center, and they sent out 2 FWC officials to our location. Within about 15 minutes, the FWC officials arrived, and they told us that they had never seen anything like it. So we all picked the animal up and loaded it onto the back of their truck. The animal weighed about 300 to 400 pounds, which was a lot of dead weight. They told us they would figure out what it was and let us know. So we had been contacted by the command center at that point, and they told us to come back and make a statement about what we saw. So we showed up at the command center, and immediately we were brought to a back room where we were to fill out the incident report. We were about 10 minutes into the incident report when we were asked to stop and wait, that there were some people coming in to see us. Within 30 to 45 minutes, 2 government officials showed up. They walked us out to the vehicle. They were asking where we had ran it over. We told them where it was, and so they examined the area. The truck had no damage. There was a black steel bumper on the front. The animal hit the bottom of that, and the tires took care of the rest. There was really nothing on the truck except for the undercarriage. There was some blood and hair. The officials collected the blood and hair samples and put them away. Next, they asked us if we could get into the vehicle they came in to take them to the location where we had run the animal over. So we complied and got into the vehicle and left with the gentleman. It was rather a quiet ride back out to the spot. They didn't say much at all except for a couple of exchanges with each other. We showed up at the spot and walked them through what had happened. Then all of a sudden one of the guys, I guess the guy in charge, turned and looked at us and said, "Congratulations, fellas. You ran over a bear." I said, "Sir, but this was no bear that we hit." He quickly interrupted me with, "You don't understand. You ran over a bear." He then said that every time I told anybody about this, I ran over a bear. I was never to speak a word about what we actually hit, that I could face charges. My whole retirement could go away. They said I could lose my job, and that they would slander me and make me look like a fool. So I looked at my partner, and we had no other choice but to comply. On the ride back, it kind of struck me as odd that this was an actual government cover-up. They knew what this thing was that we had hit. They had seen them before, and now were in possession of a body. For some reason, they didn't want anyone to know about it, and they were going through Great Lakes to keep it under wraps. The main reason why I'm telling my story is because I'm hoping one of the other 3 people, my partner and the 2 FWC officials, will come forward. I figure it's a lot harder to silence 4 people than it is just one. People really do need to know that these things are out there and that they are real. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.